Welcome to this edition of Inside the Academy Studio.
Today's conversation will be about Ben Zeitlin's Beasts of the Southern Wild. To quote the film, Beasts of the Southern Wild is about a hush puppy, her daddy, who live in a bathtub. It essentially takes place in the fictional bathtub, which is the southern outlet islands of Louisiana, with the rambunctious 6-year-old hush puppy who sees her life and all that around her change when her dad becomes ill, and she has to face new challenges in the form of these beasts and the internal struggles to realize what peace she has in the world. I'd like to introduce my co-host, as always, and I want to pose the first question. Ben Zeitlin is only 30 right now, nominated for Best Director. When he made this film on such a low budget, he had to really capture a lot of raw emotion and realism. And how effective do you think he was in really capturing the essence of the people of Bathtub in this film?
I think it was a great portrayal. I mean, at its surface, right, the movie looks like a movie that's very just gonna look at the poor and like their struggles, right? But it's really about people trying to find their independence, and you can see that with all the characters in the bathtub really trying to assert who they are, not what they are. Like, if that makes any sense, they really want to be separate from like who they commonly refer to them as land dwellers or something along those lines, I believe.
Correct.
And you could really see that when Wink, who's a hush puppy's father, devises a plan to destroy the levee so that
the fresh water can flow to the bathtub.
Yeah, a lot of people oppose that plan because they believe once they hear the explosion, they'll come and rescue us. Which, when you see other movies that take place in disaster, you see the complete opposite. You see people who want to be rescued, who want to find the promised land, for lack of a better term. In this movie, they believe they have the promised land and they want to save the land. So it's a complete flip on that.
Correct. Yeah. Along with directing, Ben Zeitlin adapted with Lucy Alibar the screenplay based on Lucy Alibar's one-act play, Juicy and Delicious. Mm-hmm. And I guess the most central part of that screenplay and that one-act play must be Hush Puppy, played brilliantly by Kavenzwe Wallace, first-time actress who was only 6 years old when she played this role, and she's been nominated now, the youngest Best Actress nominee.
Most definitely.
She's a character that so small but has so much pure energy among her that she can hold the screen with her dad, with the people in the bathtub. What is it about Hush Puppy's character that stays with you while you're watching the film and even after the film?
Well, like you said, a lot of it goes to Kavenzwe Wallace. We've been practicing 5 minutes to say that name, and I apologize to the young actress, but I still cannot get her name down. I think it's also because the movie started in 2008, at least the first casting, I believe. So she had a lot of time to grow up with this movie as well, and you could see her grow up through the movie. Like, even if it may not be physically or aging, you can see how she changes, how she reacts to a situation, and you feel like you can relate to her in that situation. Like,
it doesn't seem like an older person portraying that age. It seems like somebody who's growing with their character instead of trying to become their character or trying to, mold into their character, where you can kind of see this Kavenzwe is like evolving with the character.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see a little too often, and not that there's anything wrong with that. You see a character thrust into a dire situation, and they immediately become all the wiser for it.
Correct. Yeah.
And in this movie, you see a character who's already very independent, can stand on her own. There's a lot of again, and she's able, and as the situation gets more difficult, how she reacts to it, for better or for worse.
You brought up wisdom. Where do you think that character's wisdom comes from? Is it simply her interactions with her dad, Wink, or the conversations she has with her mother, who obviously left her, but they can still kind of keep up a conversation? And
well, the mother thing was kept intensely ambiguous, right? It was more. I think they just said
ambiguous in the sense that she was important in her life, or that.
Well, I think, not to go too far in the movie, but the mother that we do see, quote unquote, is, they never really explicitly state that that's her mother that she met near the end of the movie, right?
Right.
She acts like a mother-like figure to her, and in a way, we kind of see it again on screen of her mother-like figure telling her that she can't take care of her. So
right. My co-host is referencing a scene near the end of the film when a bunch of the girls and Hush Puppy board a boat brothel with a lot of prostitutes, and she kind of is drawn to this one who cooks her some fried alligator, and tries to tell her again that she's not her mother. And it's left ambiguous, but you kind of get the indication that it's closure on that part. Now, drawing upon the name Beasts of the Southern Wild, we are drawn to this illusion of these aurochs that are awoke when the icebergs start melting, and that they're traveling somewhere. How did you interpret the symbolism of the aurochs and the icebergs melting in terms of where Hush Puppy was and her reality?
Well, I think the aurochs were, again, another thing left intentionally ambiguous. It was a reflection of the character breaking out on her own, I think, because they bring it up throughout the movie about the cracks in the ice, and the aurochs, you can kind of say, is like her personality breaking out, and how she has to, as her father's dying, of course, how she has to break out on her own. And among the final scene shows her standing with the aurochs, and you can find a reflection of the relationship between beast and person in other movies during our series.
Right.
Just for some foreshadowing right there.
To paraphrase, a big interaction, and she kind of says, "I gotta take care of my own," and it's almost like she's got to move on, right? If the beast is her past, that internal conflict she has, but she knows she has to deal with reality. And much of the reality she has to deal with in this film is her father, Wink, played superbly by Dwight Henry, an actor, in the loosest terms, coming into the film, who's actually a baker. Talk about Wink, talk about Dwight, and what he brought to this film.
I mean, we were talking about how the director, really wanted to bring realism into this movie, right?
Correct.
And Dwight Henry really brings a realism that we wouldn't be able to see through an actor who wasn't native to that region. And it just so happened that the actor that they found wasn't really an actor. So, and if you read the IMDb page in the trivia, so they do tell the story about how long it took to convince Dwight Henry to do this role. And I think the movie was better.
I think it was more just they couldn't find him.
Yeah.
Partly it was that.
Yeah, definitely.
Were there any specific lessons? Because Wink knew that he was, his time was short, and he wanted to say that, impart some lessons to Hush Puppy that she'd be fine. Do you kind of see any lessons he was trying to provide to her? Was it, frankly, just independence, and you can't be the victim, like we stated earlier, and that these people need to seek their freedom, and they're going for freedom? You can't just simply take it, or try to think it's given to you.
I think there's nothing more I can add to that. I mean, a good quote of the beginning is like, my daddy tells me that on the mainland they eat their fish in plastic. It just shows you how differently Wink has brought up a Hush Puppy. I mean, we'll go into a little bit later about how whether his parenting is right or not, or probably not. We won't actually because we're not.
No, dude, okay, bring it. You brought it up.
Oh, we'll say we won't.
It's unorthodox.
Yes.
It's to that element, to that environment. In a way, it works.
Yes.
You know, he challenges her. She meets the challenges. The arm wrestling, the eating and ripping apart a live crab.
Beast it. Yeah.
Yes, the words beasted and her flexing her muscles.
Yeah.
A great image in the film. Done really well. I want to touch upon where they are. The bathtub is located on an island off Louisiana, off the mainland. Do you think this film is in any way trying to editorialize the post-Katrina world? Were these people in the bathtub forgotten, or are they reclaiming what is theirs? Do you have a particular position on that?
I think it's definitely reclaiming what is theirs, right? I mean, I remember 2005, August, September. The popular media image was about the struggles that people in Louisiana were having. But with this movie, you're seeing the struggles that the land is having. That people
are ready and they're willing to, return to normal, but then there are certain realities.
Yeah.
Whether it be the bureaucracy and then trying to put them in a shelter and get them out of here, or just the land simply not providing enough nourishment for them to survive.
Yeah.
So they are really at the whim of their environment, whether it be the external or the internal environment. We're almost nearing the end of this edition of Inside the Academy Studio, and like always, we like to end with questions. So I ask, what was your favorite moment in Beasts of the Southern Wild?
Oh, it was already brought up, but I'm just going to bring it up again. It was the scene where Wink tells his daughter to beast it, otherwise known as snap the crab in half and eat it whole, right? It just shows what may come off as abusive, and to be honest, probably doesn't mean there's a lack of love in a relationship. It just means that it's complicated, especially between a single father and a daughter, especially in such a unique area of the American South.
Right.
I mean, it shows that there's more to a relationship than just what people see. There's also how people feel.
My favorite moment was when the residents of Bathtub were actually rounded up by the local authorities and brought into the shelter, and you really saw the culture clash. The people who were working there just, were really trying to help, but they were considered the enemy. They were just really oil and water kind of thing, and it really clashed. And I really loved the moment where they tried escaping onto the buses. It was really fun, and that was mine. The least favorite moment in Beasts of the Southern Wild?
Oh, my least favorite moment would have to be... it's not really so much a scene, it's more like a characterization. It's when Wink, Hush Puppy's father, tries to put her on the bus and send her away quickly to when he realizes he's dying, of course, and it's all but certainty. It just felt like too quick of a decision, and it felt like a little out of his character, but I can almost understand why he did it, because obviously he was in a very frantic state of mind at the time.
I agree. My least favorite moment was the scene on the brothel boat when the girls and Hush Puppy, they're in search of something and they meet the woman and she cooks them the alligator. Once again, at that point I was so invested in the story of Hush Puppy and Wink that to be removed for 5 to 7 minutes or however long that was in a 90-minute movie, to me, it didn't really gel, and I was much looking forward to the meeting between the Aurochs and when she meets her dad again near the end. One of the last things we like to do is word association. So when you think Beasts of the Southern Wild, what do you think of?
Crab. Like, crab is there.
And I think of levees. Water, bathtub, it's all there. So when we think of Beasts of the Southern Wild, we think of crab and levees. This has been this edition of Inside the Academy Studio.
Thank you.